Tracking. Sweden is the latest pushing for atomic power. War clouds gathering as the unthinkable is unfolding. More and more European leaders now mulling acquiring nuclear weapons. The question is, how will the continent even cope up when even the most peaceful nations brace for atomic warfare?
The air in Stockholm is charged with existential dread. Sweden is now facing its moment of truth. Sweden is talking nukes. The question is blunt. Is the NATO commitment enough, or must Stockholm pursue the bomb itself? The debate is raging through Sweden's political sphere. Right-wing Sweden Democrats Party and center-right Christian Democrats Party, both part of the government, want Sweden to play an active part in a common European nuclear weapons strategy. The fear is contagious. Across Europe's eastern flank, the rhetoric is escalating. Nations like Poland are openly questioning the depth of the American security guarantee, given the rapid policy changes under the Trump administration. The same idea is echoing in Berlin as several German politicians are pushing for atomic power. Germany wants Britain and France must step into the breach if Washington falters. But again, the question stalks. Can France or the UK extend a genuine nuclear umbrella for Europe?
Shalom. Giving all praises to Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai, and double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. May Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai's peace be bestowed unto you, hopefully elect. I'm your brother Overcall from Great Millstone, Orlando. And as the dominance, the trustworthiness of Babylon begins to fade, more nations are coming to the realization. Again, dependence upon Babylon is diminishing. So with that being said, as it says here in Isaiah 14 and 16, they that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms? Again, Babylon's dominance. And America's just not trustworthy anymore. So with that being said, more and more of America's allies, which all in all, the conclusion of this matter pertaining to Babylon, America's fate, is all these nations, including America's allies, are going to shoot their missiles at America. And part of that being the untrustworthiness. All right. But it says, verse 17, that made the world as a wilderness and destroyed the cities thereof, that opened not the house of his prisoners. So again, the fact that not only just Sweden, but other nations, several other nations, again, instead of relying on Babylon, relying on NATO, the EU, hey, certain of these nations, man, they want their own big guns. They want their own so-called weapons of mass destruction. And why is that? Because, again, Esau, man, the top wicked elites, they're making the whole world, turning the whole world into a wilderness. As I always say, man, everyone, it's a one big wild, wild west showdown, and everyone's showing up with their guns, all right, pointing them at one another, and these other nations, scrambling to the fight, which they're being forced into this fight because of the top wicked elites, man. They're being forced into this fight. All right. So again, the fact that these nations, they want their own guns. so to say. They want their own nukes because of, again, Babylon's untrustworthiness. All right, nations are seeing more and more this place is not reliable. All right, and like I said, man, that fear, that fear is contagious, spreading to these other nations. And like I said, and this is why we're seeing with the BRICS. All right, all these nations more and more, including America's allies. All right, some of America's closest allies doing away with the dollar. Dumping their bonds, right? And so on and so forth. And they're going over to what would be the new Babylon, the new NATO in the EU. All right, which is spearhead of what would be, hypothetically speaking, the new Russia and China, being the spearheads. Because like I said, if the Lord allowed this place to go on another 100 years or so, man, Russia and China would be the new NATO and the EU. All right, the new Babylon. Right. But this is why these other nations, more and more, they are doing away from America, especially America's allies, and joining over there to the BRICS. If you've been paying attention over the past few years, because why is that? Well, Esau, America's untrustworthiness and her dominance is diminishing. You see, and this is the importance of the kingdom of Yashar Allah being established on the earth, man, because I'm going to go to this. Matter of fact, before I go to that, I'm going to go to this in Joel. Because when the Israelites are set back in power, there won't be a need for war. But under the rudiments or rulership of Esau, Edom, man, again, turning the whole world into a wilderness. All right. We'll go to this in Joel 3. Joel 3 and uh, 9. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. Prepare war, wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. And again, under the rudiments or under the rulership of Esau, under the rulership of the Israelites, there's not going to be a thing. It's not going to be a thing of war. All right. It says, verse 10, beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I'm strong. So you see, because Esau's in power, these once prosperous and fruitful nations, now a lot of these nations that were once fruitful in resources and things of that nature, man, they have to because they've slept with this whore. All right. Instead of building and bettering their nations, their economies and things of that nature. And this is what we've been seeing if you've been paying attention over the years. Esau, because of Esau, these nations, man, they have to get ready for war. They have to gear up for war. You see, instead of bettering their economies, right? Putting their resources into their economies and whatnot. This is why you see military drafts being conducted. You have all type of nations preparing for nuclear fallout, what to do in case of a nuclear fallout, survival guides, and all these other things. All of this under the rulership of Esau. But versus the Israelites, and before I get that, I'm gonna get this in Isaiah. Well, no, scratch that. Let's just get to it in Isaiah 2. Because as I just read, in Joel 3, Turning their plowshares into swords and pruning hooks into spears, which these are supposed to be instruments in, again, agriculture. Like I said, basically, resources that builds up your economy, strengthens your economy, and things of that nature, right? But under the rulership of Esau, they can't do that. But under the Israelites, all right, it's not going to be a thing of war. That's why I want to go to this in Isaiah 2 and Isaiah 2. Let me start at 2. And it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it. So under the rulership and management, which that's what the kingdom of heaven consists of, proper distribution of resources. All right. And with that being said, the nations, they're going to have their plotted land, and they're going to be able to truly live. All right. It's not going to be to the extent of the Israelites, being able to truly enjoy, the kingdom. But nevertheless, the kingdom of heaven will benefit the nations. And that's why, as we always talk about, man, Esau, he's going to have to be separated because, as I just read, is this the man that made the kingdom to shake? Right? But once, again, the Israelites are set back in power, even the nations are going to get to a point where they're going to see, man, this is how it's supposed to be. This is how the earth is supposed to be ran. This is how it's supposed to be. Even the nations are going to come to that conclusion. And we're already seeing that now. The nations looking at Esau, narrowly looking at Esau. It says, verse 3, and many people shall go and say, come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, the house of the power of Jacob. Because, even within that first year, that first 1,000 years in the kingdom, that first day in the kingdom, this is why they're going to have to be ruled with a rod of iron. Of course, they're not going to want to keep the laws, statutes, and commandments, right? But again, they're even going to get to a point where, like the scripture says, surely this is a wise and understanding people. Even the nations are going to get to a point. This is how the earth is supposed to be ran. This is how it's supposed to be done. So at some point, they're going to, after 1,000 years, man, that 1,000 years, they're going to want to serve our ways. Now they're going to be in the flesh still, so of course they're not going to be perfect like the Israelites. But even with the nations, they're going to get to a point where, they're going to want to serve. It says, for out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. Verse 4. And he shall judge among the nations and shall rebuke many people. And they shall beat their swords into plowshares and spears into pruning hooks. So you see, it says, nation shall not lift up the sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. So you see, as they read in Joel, the 3rd chapter, where they're turning their plowshares into swords and pruning hooks into spears, right? But it's going to be the reversal, all right? It's going to be the opposite in the kingdom, all right? Again, the nations, they're going to be able to get their plotted land and live, and when they go off, because they're all going to go off, hey, they're going to get judged or whatever the case may be. But for the most part, they're going to be able to live, get their plot of land and live. They're just going to be tributaries to the Israelites. But there's not going to be no more war. So, this is why Esau has to go. This is why he has to go. All right. Because, the war to end all wars, World War III is going to usher in the second coming of Yahweh Shai. All right. And from there, it's going to be nothing but peace. But as of right now, Esau, he's turned the whole world into a wilderness. America can't be trusted anymore. All right. She's not dependable. She's not reliable. And, this is why, again, man, more and more we're seeing nations in this type of mindset. They want to protect their interest. you know. But you're not going to fully be able to do that in this kingdom, and which is why again the destruction, man, it has to take place. It has to come, because again, it's only going to usher in the kingdom of Yashar Allah, Yahushai, and those elect men are going to be, of course, the rulers of the galaxy, man, of the universe. The Lord's house, the Heavenly Father's house. So, under the rulership of Esau, hey, this is what you get. The whole world is turned. Here it is. The world was made to be inhabited. It was made to be enjoyed. But under the rulership of Esau, it's a maximum security prison, and everyone's scrambling. Like I said, it's a Wild Wild West show, man, and everyone is showing up late to the party, scrambling. And this is all under the rulership of Esau, man. Which again, the kingdom of heaven, it consists of proper distribution of resources, man. But you're not going to get that under E. So Lord, one of this is edifying. All praises to you. How about Shemal Shai? Shalom to you. Hopefully, elect.